pace. As Beijing ratchets up its threats to Taiwan, its rift with Japan appears to be growing.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, AFCON defending champions Ivory Coast toppled Burkina Faso to ease into the quarterfinals. And Pakistan captain Salman Ali Agha says the series against Sri Lanka will be a World Cup practice. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
A very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us. If you've just done that right now, we are Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, coming to you from our Johannesburg studios, live in South Africa, that is. And we're together for the next 2 hours. We're still within our programming for the holiday season, returning to normal programming next week. My name is Asanda Peta.
And I'm Peter Ndoro. Yes, indeed. Yeah, broadcasting always from Johannesburg, www.channelafrica.co.za. And we've got a packed program as usual. What's coming up on the show? Well, a number of stories actually, but the one I'm fascinated in is this move by Israel to recognize the autonomous, well, they call themselves autonomous, of Somaliland. And this is against everybody. And I wonder why they're doing this, what this is about. And yet, we'll unpack that a little bit later on. More on that.
We also go to Cape Verde, and that country has introduced new entry regulations, and that ends the long-standing practice of issuing visas on arrival for many nationalities. So the changes are effective as of currently. They took effect from the 1st of January of this new year, and they now require travelers from about 96 countries to obtain a visa before departing for this country. Before, visitors could register online through an official portal rather, and then pay the necessary fees and receive a visa upon arrival. So under this new rule, visas including transit or airport stopover visas were applicable, but now must be secured in advance at a Cape Verdean embassy or consulate. Quite a few number of countries that are affected by that new law.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Peta are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa. Cling, cling. Turn up the African vibe, Africa style. Tune in on the Channel Africa app or log on to our website, channelafrica.co.za. Madapiri Bazoshitika. Madapiri Bazoshitika.
Madotolo oposa 1,500 amene amagwira ntchito yaulere mu zipatala zaboma mdziko la Zambia azanyanyala ntchito lachisanu sabata ya mawa, ndipo Daniel Shabanda kutambasula nkhani.
Madotolo oposa 1,500 amene amagwira ntchito mopanda malipiro apamwezi dziko la Zambia akuyembekezera kuyamba kunyanyala ntchito. Ichi ndi chifukwa chakuti boma lalephera walemba ntchito monga mmene lidawalonjezera. Channel Africa News yalankhulana ndi mkulu wa bungwe la madotolo la Resident Doctors Association of Zambia, Dr. Paul Chiwe, akugomeza kuti madotolo ambiri amene akugwira ntchito mu zipatala zaboma akugwira ntchito yaulere, ndipo ali ndi chiyembekezo chakuti tsiku lina adzalembedwa ntchito ndi boma.
Zochitika pa nthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lolemba mpaka lachisanu ndi Madapiri. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
After the 6 a.m. news on Rise and Shine, we bring you a segment of the show that we call the Africa Roundup. This is where we catch you up with stories happening in and around our continent you may have missed. I'm sure you missed quite a few as we ease into the new year, coming back from holidays bit by bit. So we'll catch you up then on what's been happening. And this also serves as a throw forward in what one can expect to develop in the space of news when it comes to in and around our continent. And today's Africa Roundup starts with the African Union's Political Affairs, Peace and Security Council. They've called for an immediate revocation of Israel's recognition of Somaliland. The call comes as Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sarah visits Somaliland on a trip that was denounced by Somalia 10 days after Israel formally recognized the self-declared republic as an independent and sovereign state. In a social media post, the AU's Peace and Security Council wrote, at today's 324th AUPSC ministerial meeting, the Council strongly condemns, in the strongest terms, the unilateral recognition of the so-called Republic of Somaliland by Israel and calls for its immediate revocation, and that the PSC reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the sovereignty, unity, territorial integrity and stability of the Federal Republic of Somalia in line with the AU Constitutive Act, the PSC Protocol, as well as the UN Charter.
Meanwhile, the spokesperson for the Department of International Relations and Cooperation in South Africa, in many countries known as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Crispin Beery, has confirmed that 14 South Africans currently detained in Thailand are set to be deported back home. Now, the group was allegedly recruited by a South African national for employment in the IT sector. According to a family member of one of the South Africans, they'd been refused any form of communication with the outside world and were being detained in inhumane conditions. Mongi Zwane tells us more.
14 South Africans in their early 20s who were recruited for employment in Thailand are now detained in that country and are due back to be deported back to South Africa. Now, the youngsters allegedly recruited by a South African male for employment in the IT sector, but some ended up performing scamming activities while others were deployed to the military. Now, according to a family member of one of the South Africans who wants to remain anonymous, they've been refused any form of communication with the outside world and are being detained in inhumane conditions.
14 South Africans in Thailand, they are in prison. They face the charges to overstay. 2 ladies, they are not in a good situation. They are sick.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has joined other leaders in condemning the United States of America's invasion of Venezuela and the capture of its president Nicolas Maduro and his spouse to face charges in New York. Ramaphosa says that South Africa rejected the actions taken by the United States.
It is our commitment to international law and the United Nations Charter that informs our deep concern and action of the United States in Venezuela, which has undermined the territorial integrity and sovereignty of a UN member state called Venezuela. We reject utterly the actions that the United States has embarked upon and stand with the people of Venezuela. And we demand the release of President Maduro and his wife as well.
Uganda's government says that it's banning live broadcasts of riots, unlawful processions and other violent incidents ahead of an election in which President Yoweri Museveni is seeking to extend his 40-year rule. This report by Reuters.
In a statement, the Ministry of Information Communication and Technology said, quote, live broadcasting or streaming of riots, unlawful processions or violent incidents is prohibited as it can escalate tensions and spread panic. The authorities often describe anti-government protests as riots. A ministry official rejected rumours that it was shutting down the internet.
Claims suggesting otherwise are false claims.
But it has banned the spreading of any content it described as inciting, hateful or violent. More than 50 people were killed before the last election in 2021 as security forces cracked down on Wine's supporters. They had accused Museveni of stealing the election, which the president denied.
The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights says the world community must make clear that U.S. intervention in Venezuela is a violation of international law that makes the world less safe. Spokesperson for the UN Human Rights Office, Ravina Shamdasani.
We are deeply worried about the situation in Venezuela following the U.S. military operation over the weekend. It is clear that the operation undermined a fundamental principle of international law, that states must not threaten or use force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. The U.S. has justified its intervention on grounds of the Venezuelan government's long-standing and appalling human rights record. But far from being a victory for human rights, this military intervention, which is in contravention of Venezuelan sovereignty and the UN Charter, damages the architecture of international security, making every country less safe.
Now, South African low-cost carrier Fly Safair has been recognized as the most punctual airline in the Middle East and Africa, achieving an on-time performance score that surpasses even the world's top-ranked airlines. Since its launch in 2014, Fly Safair is consistently ranked amongst the world's most punctual carriers, earning multiple international awards for on-time performance. In 2025, the airline was also voted Best Airline at the South African Civil Aviation Authority Excellence Awards and received the Skytrax Award for the Best Low-Cost Airline in Africa. And that's Africa Roundup for today. We'll have more for you tomorrow after the 6 o'clock news. And can I just say, Fly Safair, why they're so punctual? I once checked in 2 minutes late and they left me behind.
Oh, yes, I can believe that.
And sadly, that day, I was going back to Zimbabwe to my mom's funeral. And I was meant to be there for the morning service, but I couldn't get on the plane. 2 minutes. And I told them that, look, you know, I've got to go to a funeral. And they said, look, sorry, we closed the gate 2 minutes ago, that's it. And that was it. So yes, they'll get these awards, but 1 minute can mean so much to somebody who's
and
not
you
there.
have personal experience of that. Sorry you had to experience that. Yeah, I can also vouch for their time, being on time all the time. I was using them the entire of December to different locations, that is, and they even land like earlier, 5 minutes earlier in some of the flights.
It's true.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
So let's zoom into what's happening in the West African region of our continent, and there's quite a number of stories there. Political uncertainty being at the top of the list, shifting alliances and policy changes that are continuing to shape the region of West Africa. Burkina Faso, one of the stories we'll be touching on, where supporters have rallied in Ouagadougou. Also, Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger are asserting a more defiant stance internationally, including retaliatory travel restrictions against U.S. nationals. Also, Guinea's Supreme Court confirming Mamadi Doumbouya's election victory, even as ECOWAS warns against prolonged military-led transitions elsewhere in the region. But to unpack, we're joined by Dr. David Matsanga, who joins us on Wednesdays to zoom into this region of our continent and unpack for us. Dr. Matsanga, always great catching up with you. A happy new year, 2026. Hopefully it's filled with blessings and great things for you.
Happy New Year to you, Asanda. Happy New Year to all listeners across the globe. I'm not very happy though about Venezuela and the states of international law as an expert. Good morning.
Good morning. And let's start with the Burkina Faso. Supporters have taken to the streets of Ouagadougou. They did this over the weekend, and this following reports of an attempted coup. What do you think this tells us about the current balance of power and public sentiment in the country for especially their leader?
This leader in Burkina Faso is one of the populist, one of the popular leaders in Africa, one of the popular leaders in the region, one of the few people who is practical. And therefore, if you went there to say you want to topple him, people will lick you, people will eat you, people will break you, people will fight you. Because this leadership in Ouagadougou has shown practical examples. If you want ambulances, they come. If you want a road, it is done. If you want something that should benefit the locals, it is immediately given. So it is brought and paid. If he has paid debts off, he has paid IMF off, he has paid the banks off, he has taken back the resources. That's why you see France is not sleeping. The one of the monsters of imperial monsters that we still have lingering across the continent of Africa is France. Therefore, his popularity in West Africa, in Africa, and in his own home backyard is very, very, very high, on 100% plus. Every African leader, every African youth, every African homestead, people want to see the portrait. Once they see the portrait of this guy, they just like him.
In a more broad sense, in the Sahel, Mali and Burkina Faso, as well as Niger, appear increasingly aligned, both when it comes to politics as well as the military. How significant is this bloc, and how might it reshape regional security dynamics?
You know very well, I told you that they can never go back to ECOWAS because ECOWAS is funded by France. Therefore, rule out any question of these guys coming to ECOWAS. Instead, small other countries like Togo, Benin, you can see countries struggling to join them instead of joining, staying in ECOWAS. Even Ghana, a bigger country, is thinking of talking to these younger men and joining the organization because it is effective. They have controlled their resources. They have controlled their uranium, their lithium. They have controlled their gold. Their all what they have. They are producing it. They are selling it. You bring the cash. You take the gold. They use it for hospital. They build the roads. They extend their airports. They buy new aircrafts. These are people, and above all, they have that Pan-African spirit, which is reigniting the Pan-Africanism that we have lost in Africa for a long time.
These same countries have also imposed retaliatory travel bans on U.S. nationals. What message do you think this sends in terms of to Western powers, in terms of how this could affect diplomatic and economic relations?
It is even, why do you allow Americans to walk free and eat our food freely when they want us to pay for everything, even their aircraft? You pay for the aircraft, you pay for the visa, they want you to deposit money. Americans don't want us in their country. Why do they want to come to this place? Americans don't want, you don't know what is going on there. We have people in East Africa, the Somalis, are being told to go back. They're being forced to be dumped into Kenya and other places. So it is a very bad state of affairs of international relations, international law, broken everywhere. So people who have settled in America are being chased away. Now, what Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have done, they have also issued, the territories visa, slapped the visas on Americans. No American will fly there until America sees that there is no-go zone. Who likes, do they have the sunshine we have? No. They are now in the snow. In Mali, it is very interesting, hot throughout. You can sleep nicely, have the air, the Sahara is blowing. They don't have these things. So I don't see why Africans are worried about these guys. These guys need to be told, you put a visa ban on us, we put a visa ban on us. That is the spirit those three countries have done. They have also issued a ban on American entry until America realizes It needs that region more than they need us, more than they need the Mali and the Niger and the Burkina Faso need them.
So ECOWAS has no say on those three countries, but it has rejected the transition process in Guinea-Bissau and warned of possible sanctions. Is the regional body losing influence, or is it recalibrating its approach to military-led governments?
I think it lost its relevance a long time ago. ECOWAS is controlled by France. ECOWAS is a building in Abuja, but the money that pays the workers, the employees, everybody, including these all people who walk around with ECOWAS diplomatic passport, useless. They all come from France. So my sister, and the people listening to us in Africa, we don't have our own institutions. That is the danger. We don't have that nationalism. That is the danger. We don't have that Pan-Africanism. That is the danger we have on this continent. Look at Latin America, speaking in one language. Look at the opposition in places where Mr. Trump tried to pick it up, who picked their president, abducted him. They are speaking with one voice. Africans, we don't speak with one voice. ECOWAS is gone, is lost. They know very well that this Doumbouya just remove the man and put this guy in a cooler, and then said he's a president. He removed the uniform, organized the sham election. They want to recognize him. The AU will run and recognize him. On this one, even if ECOWAS is dead, I support ECOWAS on Guinea-Bissau, on Guinea-Conakry, because that guy is one of the guys used by the French to destabilize the others. I don't think they should recognize him at all. They should be left in the cold for some time so that he can find his bearing.
So let's turn to Guinea then, as you touch on that, because the Supreme Court has confirmed Mamadi Doumbouya's election victory. Do you think that this ruling settles questions of legitimacy?
No. By ECOWAS standards, no. It doesn't. It is going to remain a pariah democracy, a transition that was not accepted by the West African ECOWAS organization. They were set bound benchmarks. They didn't fulfill the benchmarks. So it will remain a pariah. And if it is a pariah, then it means you cannot recognize them. So that's a sorry state for Doumbouya. And that's what I prayed, and I wanted it to happen to that tall guy, Doumbouya, from that place there. He's not a good person. He's a mole. He's a mole, the French mole planted around the West African states. He's an American mole planted around there who is using tactics to get his friends into trouble, military counter coups and so on and so forth. That's very good for ECOWAS.
All right, Dr. Matsanga, let's go to Cape Verde now. Maybe this is not such a political story, but they've decided to end their visa on arrival access to travelers from 96 countries. What are the possible economic and diplomatic implications of this decision for a tourism-dependent economy? Visas are now going to be issued as in time, not just now as via the e-portal where you can get your visa upon entry in Cape Verde. You need to now apply in due time.
You know, VAD relies on narcotics. Mainly, some of the government there has faced the situation of narcotics. You know, it's an island where people seem to be dumping their goods or leaving their goods, then come back to collect them. I think the government in there faced a lot of those troubles. The population is very small, but the population was being engulfed in crime that is related to this free entry, departure, in, out. So many criminals, wild gangsters, the well-known mafia were operating through Cape Verde. I think it decided no. Enough is enough. Let's screen some of these places. Some of these countries in Africa, some don't have the capability to screen their visitors before they arrive. So that's why every situation is the visa you apply through the embassy, wherever it is. They have time to look at it. They don't have the equipment, the digital systems. that we see in Dubai, the digital systems we see in UK, the digital systems you see in America, in South Africa, in other places, in Kenya, and other places where you can be checked at a moment there. Even most of these countries that allow the free visa entry, you have to make an entry there, prompt entry on a computer. Then it says, okay, accepted or not. If it's not accepted, then even if you're at the airport, they will ask you why this is not this, why that is not that. Most of the countries are using that, but Cape Verde was overwhelmed, and with so many criminals entering Cape Verde, then using Cape Verde as a transit conduit system to arrive with contrabands and narcotics, which brought a problem for the government. I looked at it. One of the reasons was that, and said, no, apply for the visa, then we know who is coming and who is going out, who we shall allow and whom we shall not allow.
All right, we're gonna leave it there for today, Dr. Matsanga. I know you had your views about Venezuela, but we only literally have 30 seconds to go, so we'll get those another day. But thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. My Venezuelan situation, I'm going to have it at a higher on South African Broadcasting Corporation at 8:40 today. I have made an application to the International Court of Justice for an advisory opinion on how Trump must be stopped on how we can do it. Thank you very much. Hear me later. And thank you very much, Asanda. We'll come back to the 2026. Let's do it again. I hope we shall improve Africa.
Absolutely. So we'll be tuned in later there. Dr. David Matsanga, political scientist and conflict resolution analyst, joining us, giving us our West Africa wrap. It's 6:30 Central African time. Here's Jolane Tulongwepe with our news headlines.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines, at least 22 migrants have been killed and 65 others injured after a lorry they were travelling in overturned in Ethiopia's northeastern Afar region. 14 South Africans in their early 20s were recruited for employment in Thailand and are now being detained in that country, are due to be deported back to South Africa. This was confirmed by Department of International Relations and Corporation spokesperson Crispin Piri. And finally, the Venezuelan authorities have intensified their crackdown on political opponents since the United States seized President Nicolas Maduro at the weekend. I will have details on these and other stories at 7 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Right, it's time now to find out what's been happening in the world of sport, and all of us, some of us who are mad about football, keenly watching what's been happening in the African Cup of Nations. And yesterday, Fikile Lingwati said to me that the favourite for the tournament will start to emerge after yesterday's round of games. Let's cross to him now, find out what's been happening in the sport, and let's see what his take is on who might be now the favourite to lift the AFCON.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, Peter. Yes, indeed. Now you can tell who might go all the way. The defending champions are back. Amad Diallo proved to be the star of the show as defending champions Ivory Coast booked their spot in the Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinals after a 3-0 victory against Burkina Faso in Marrakesh. Manchester United winger Amad opening the scoring in the first half before providing an assist for Yan Diomande to double the Elephants' lead. Buzumani Toure then sealed the contest late on as Ivory Coast continued to mount a strong challenge to hold on to their title they won at home. The Elephants will now gear up for a last clash against Algeria, who had earlier won 1-0 against DR Congo. And South African Premier Soccer League last man standing at this Africa Cup of Nations tournament, and the Nigerian number 1 goalkeeper Stanley Nwabali celebrated his first clean sheet The Chippa United goalkeeper has credited his star-studded team and defense after an emphatic 4-0 victory over Mozambique on Monday night. The Super Eagles are now through to the quarterfinals after seeing off COSAFA's last hope in this tournament.
You can see I'm smiling. Yeah, I'm smiling. Kudos to these guys. They're a bunch of talent. I would say talent. They're class, you see. They give everything, you see. Scoring a lot of goals, being together, helping the team. I always want to say thank you to these guys. They did very well. They always help, not only themselves, plus the country. They really want to help them, and you can see tonight they did very well. Yeah.
Now, cricket news. Pakistan captain Salman Ali Agha says the 3-match T20 series against Sri Lanka will be a vital dress rehearsal for the World Cup next month, which Colombo co-hosts with India. The series gets underway in Dambulla on Wednesday. That's today, with the next match on Friday and the final on Sunday, all the same venue. With diplomatic relations between Pakistan and India strained, Pakistan will play the World Cup games only in Sri Lanka. Should they go the distance, both their semi-final and final will be staged in Colombo. Pakistan will be without several marquee names, with Baba Azam, Shaheen Shah Afridi, Mohammad Rizwan and Haris Rauf currently plying their trade in Australia's Big Bash League. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figede Ngwadi.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Live from Morocco, Neto Chemane takes you straight into the heart of the AFCON. Absolutely extraordinary. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Yes, indeed. Our thanks to Figile Lingwati for the sports there. I don't know if you're following AFCON at all, Asanda.
Not really.
Not really?
No, I really didn't have time.
Sad news. South Africa haven't done well again. After winning it, then they finished third, I think it was. And now it didn't even make it to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, the last match I watched was the SAism one.
Yeah.
That was it. That's the last one I had time to make. For.
So it looks like Ivory Coast might go all the way, the reigning champions. That's the story we'll be watching. So AFCON continues. So does Rise and Shine. Stay with us.
Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za. Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Tamo ndi
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. And join the conversation. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
The United Nations Security Council has met to debate the legality of a United States military operation that led to the capture of Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela. Maduro is now facing trial in New York on drug-related charges, including conspiracy to commit narco-terrorism. The move has sharply divided the council, with several members warning it could undermine international law. Our reporter Lebogang Mabange has more.
The United Nations has cautioned against unilateral use of force as the Security Council grappled with the implications of the U.S. operation in Venezuela. Briefing the council, the UN's political affairs chief urged member states to adhere strictly to international law and the UN Charter. Rosemary DiCarlo is the Under-Secretary General for Political and Peace-Building Affairs.
In situations as confused, as complex as the one we now face, it is important to stick to principles. Respect for the UN Charter and all other applicable legal frameworks to safeguard peace and security. Respect for the principles of sovereignty, political independence, and territorial integrity of states. The prohibition of the threat or use of force. The power of the law must prevail. International law contains tools to address issues such as illicit traffic in narcotics, disputes about resources, and human rights concerns. This is the route we need to take.
Concerns were also raised about what some described as a growing pattern of threats against sovereign states. President of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, Jeffrey Sachs, told the Council.
In the past month, President Trump has issued direct threats against 6 UN member states, including Colombia, Denmark, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, and of course, Venezuela. Members of the Council are not called upon to judge Nicolas Maduro. They are not called upon to assess whether the recent U.S. attack and ongoing naval quarantine results in freedom or in subjugation. Members of the Council are called upon to defend international law, and specifically the UN Charter.
The United States, however, defended its actions, rejecting claims that it had launched a war against Venezuela. United States Ambassador to the United Nations, Michael Waltz.
The United States successfully carried out a surgical law enforcement operation facilitated by the U.S. military against 2 indicted fugitives of American justice, narco-terrorist Nicolas Maduro and Celia Flores. There is no war against Venezuela or its people. We are not occupying a country. This was a law enforcement operation in furtherance of lawful indictments that have existed for decades. The United States arrested a narco-trafficker who is now going to stand trial in the United States in accordance with the rule of law for the crimes he's committed against our people for 15 years.
South Africa was among the countries that strongly opposed the operation, warning it could destabilize the global order. South Africa's statement, delivered by political counsellor and acting deputy permanent representative to the UN, Jonathan Passmore.
The unilateral military strikes carried out by the United States of America against Venezuela and the abduction of President Nicolas Maduro and his spouse from Venezuelan territory for transfer to the United States wantonly violates the sovereignty and territorial integrity and independence of Venezuela. These actions are also in stark contrast to our established legal norms, reinforcing the belief that might is right and undermining diplomacy. History has repeatedly demonstrated that military invasions against sovereign states yield only instability and deepen crises. Unlawful unilateral force of this nature undermines the stability of the international order and the principle of equality among nations.
As divisions persist within the Security Council, calls are growing for restraint and a recommitment to the UN Charter, with several member states warning that how this crisis is handled could set a far-reaching precedent for international law and global peace. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
South Africa has announced plans to establish a one-stop border post at the Beitbridge port of entry in collaboration with Zimbabwe, a move aimed at improving border efficiency and easing congestion. Border Management Authority Commissioner Michael Masiapato made the announcement during an oversight visit to Beitbridge as thousands of travelers returned to South Africa after the holidays. The project, expected to begin construction later this year, pending parliamentary approval, forms part of government's broader strategy to modernize border operations through a public-private partnership. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe has more.
A one-stop border post is a cross-border arrangement in which neighboring countries jointly conduct immigration, customs and other border control procedures at a single location. The initiative is designed to reduce duplication of processes, minimize delays and improve the flow of people and goods across borders. The primary aim of establishing a one-stop border post is to enhance trade facilitation, strengthen border security through coordinated operations, and promote regional economic integration by providing a more efficient, cost-effective and traveler-friendly border management system. Speaking to the media, BMA's Commissioner Michael Masiapato explained the process.
You see, the implementation of the one-stop border post is one of the key strategic interventions and decisions of the government of South Africa. So that is very much fundamental. From where we are sitting now, the negotiations are underway with the successful bidders in as far as the public-private partnership is concerned. So on that basis, we can indicate that during the current year, 2026, we are going to start seeing that particular work gaining traction to the extent that there will be construction sometimes next year, this year around, I would say the last quarter of the year, we are going to start seeing some movement in as far as that is concerned.
Masiapato added that the success of the one-stop border post hinges on infrastructure readiness, noting that Zimbabwe has already completed its developments and is awaiting South Africa, while the enabling legislation has passed the National Assembly and is before the National Council of Provinces.
You will remember that the implementation of the one-stop border post is fairly dependent on the infrastructure. If you look on the Zimbabwean side, you will realize that they are already done in terms of the development on their side. It is us that they are waiting for so that we can implement the one-stop border post. The good thing, the one-stop border post bill in the South African context has already passed the National Assembly and it is now being discussed in the National Council of Provinces. Once they pass it, the president is going to sign it into law. All this place where we are is going to be called a control zone, wherein we are going to co-locate with the Zimbabweans and be able to do entry and exit on our side, and we're also going to go and co-locate with them on the Zimbabwean side and do entry and exit at one place, meaning that travelers will no longer have to stop on both sides. They will only stop once and ultimately be processed by both countries.
Masiapato also reported operational successes at the border, saying BMA officials working with the SANDF intercepted and arrested 25 undocumented migrants attempting to cross the Limpopo River on 5th January, and the individuals are now being processed for deportation.
So since this morning, on the 5th of January in 2026, we've been able to intercept around 25 individuals that were attempting to enter the country illegally. We're able to see them as they were crossing Limpopo River, being assisted by some facilitators through a boat, and they entered through into a no man's land, and immediately they entered into the South African soil. We were able to bust on them and we effectively got them arrested. So the work had effectively been done by members of the Border Management Authority in terms of the border guards together with members of the South African National Defence Force, and on that basis the individuals were brought in here into the port, and as we speak we are busy processing them for deportation.
Meanwhile, the Beitbridge port of entry has seen a surge in holiday returnees from Malawi, Zimbabwe and Zambia, prompting the Border Management Authority to implement measures to manage the increased traffic. BMA Deputy Assistant Commissioner for Communication and Marketing, Meme Mkhosi, explains.
Beitbridge continues to lead with high number volumes in land borders, with over 22,483 processed on the 3rd of January alone. At Beitbridge, elevated volumes have been largely driven by the simultaneous arrival of buses from Malawi, Zimbabwe and Zambia, mainly, and the processing were managed through established border control protocols. In response to the long queues and extreme heat conditions, the BMA has prioritized small children, the elderly, and vulnerable travelers. Any traveler presenting signs of illness is assessed by the BMA Port Health officials to prevent the importation of infectious and communicable diseases.
She added that the Border Management Authority is cautioning travelers entering South Africa against bringing in prohibited species that may pose risks to public health and the environment.
In addition to immigration enforcement, the BMA has intensified agricultural, food safety and biosecurity controls, and officers continue to intercept prohibited and restricted goods, including agricultural and animal products that pose a risk to food safety and biosecurity. The BMA is warning all travelers against attempting to bring prohibited agricultural and animal products into South Africa, as these items may introduce infectious diseases, pests, and biosecurity risks. Such goods are confiscated and disposed in accordance with the applicable legislation.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
What are the chances that the drinking age legally could be changed in South Africa? It currently stands at 18. And there's an advocacy group that's asking that it be raised to the age of 21.
So it's a debate that...
and that's a chat you're going to be having in just a bit.
Yeah. So in the United States, that's the current situation. You can't drink until you're 21. People argue, though, that you can vote at 18, you can be criminally liable and do adult jail time at 18. You can die for your country as a soldier at 18. And so to say that you're able to make decisions on your own at 18 without consent of another person, it doesn't make sense then for you to say you can't make a decision about alcohol. You're not old enough to make a decision about alcohol when you're until you're 21. So that's going to be a really difficult hurdle to jump, I think. But having said that, if you see and watch how the alcohol companies are operating, they have introduced flavored alcohol now. Adults don't drink flavored alcohol.
What is flavored alcohol? Ciders?
So these drinks that have got different flavors. Before, beer was just beer.
Also, there's ciders
now. They're adding flavors to
and the mixes, huh?
Yes,
the cocktail mixes.
To make it more attractive to a younger audience. If you watch television, the advertising is not for old people. All the alcohol is aimed at young audiences, young people. So there's definitely deliberate work by the alcohol people, inverted commas, to target young people. So it's a hard one. I don't know if it's going to wash, though, because if you say someone...
there's also so many different angles to this in terms of what reasoning would you put forward. Are you talking about these young people not being able to make a decision in terms of developmentally as a human being? Are you talking about trying to curb the alcohol abuse that we see in our country, because that's a reality? Are you talking about, economically and what that will mean in terms of sales, and also what does it mean for society?
Well, the moment you say you're old enough to vote, you're old enough to make a decision about the future of your country, then I'm afraid it becomes difficult to say you're not old enough to choose wisely about alcohol.
Cheers to rest and renewal. Festive African greetings from Channel Africa. Go on, download the Channel Africa app.
Téléchargez l'application Channel Africa sur votre Play Store ou Apple Store afin de pouvoir suivre toutes nos émissions en direct de là où vous vous trouvez. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
The Black Lawyers Association in South Africa has thrown its weight behind Justice and Constitutional Development Minister Mamoloko Kubai's call for mandatory lifestyle audits for all prosecutors. Now, the association says that the move is critical to protecting the integrity of South Africa's justice system, particularly in light of serious concerns that have been raised about the National Prosecuting Authority during the Zondo Commission into the state capture. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Simosa tells us more.
South Africa's Justice and Constitutional Development Minister Mamoloko Kubai says there's a need for prosecutors to be subjected to lifestyle audits arguing that those who live beyond their means pose a serious risk to the institution and its credibility.
I don't understand why NPA has not voluntarily or upfront said all prosecutors must do lifestyle audit. Because if a prosecutor is refusing to do a lifestyle audit, that's a red flag. If a prosecutor does not feel comfortable, a prosecutor that lives beyond their means, it's a problem. Because they are risking the system. So if you have done a lifestyle audit for everybody, then you'd have the comfort, even where there are allegations, to say, but I've done lifestyle audit across them.
The Black Lawyers Association has backed mandatory lifestyle audits for prosecutors. How should these audits be structured to ensure they expose corruption without undermining prosecutorial independence or due process? Mvundlela Nkosana is the president of Black Lawyers Association.
The standard there is for you to be able to say, if ordinarily you are earning a take home of 35,000 rand, would you have a house that is not on a bond of the 4 million rand, but no bond on it, and over a particular time you have been able to acquire that property?
Given the findings of Zondo Commission and ongoing inquiry, like the Nkabinde matter, Nkosana believes lifestyle audits alone are not sufficient to restore public confidence in the NPA. He advocates for deeper institutional reforms.
The simple answer is no. The lifestyle audits are but one of the measures. I think the reason we support the minister on that statement, and we believe that she's on a correct trajectory in cleaning the NPA and also rebuilding the confidence in the institution. The following things, in our view, must happen. One, there must be an appointment of a correct leader for the NPA. You may have seen and heard during the interviews, the interview panel was able to ask questions about leadership and so forth and so forth. And the answers that we got there may have also reflected on the NPA's need for a leader who's going to be able to provide that leadership.
The Justice Minister says resistance to lifestyle audits should be seen as a red flag. Nkosana shares some of the consequences that should follow if prosecutors are found to be living beyond their means.
Now, the consequence is, for obvious reasons, if a person refuses, our expectation and that legal process is simply to then investigate all the other decisions that you had made, particularly when you are the DPP in provinces which are regarded as head offices of the prosecutors in every province. Then they must be investigated.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Mpumalanga, South Africa.
Malawi's President Peter Mutharika has expanded his cabinet from 24 to 28 members in a reshuffle that has scrapped the Ministry of State and split the Ministry of Natural Resources, Energy and Mining into 2 district portfolios. This marks the first major shake-up since Mutharika's inauguration in October of 2025. While some have praised the abolition of the Minister of State position, human rights activist Benedicto Kondowe has questioned the logic of a larger cabinet amid the president's own promises of fiscal austerity. George Mango reports from Blantyre in Malawi.
3 months after taking office following his victory in the September 2025 polls, President Peter Mutharika has signaled a new direction for his administration. In this cabinet reshuffle, the president has introduced 4 new faces to the executive, doubling the number of deputy ministers from 3 to 7. Among the new appointments are 2 legislators, Togo Tembo, who joined the Ministry of Agriculture, and Charles Lambura, who takes up a role in health and sanitation as deputy minister. The president has also reached out to outside of parliament to appoint Chipiro Mpinganjira and Edgar Tembo as deputy ministers for natural resources and industrialization, respectively. While reshuffles are often viewed as political maneuvering, opposition figure Felix Njawala suggests this may be a practical reconfiguration of the state.
We wish all the new cabinet ministers and deputy ministers the best to serve Malawians better, because Malawians are suffering, and we need a cabinet that can provide solutions to the challenges that people are going through in this country.
However, the expansion has been met with stiff criticism regarding the cost of government. Human rights campaigner Benedicto Gondowe argues the move contradicts the president's campaign rhetoric regarding a leaner, more efficient government.
We are worried that the additional responsibilities that were given to the vice president and second vice president have been removed, which is sending some signals that there could be underlying currents that Malawians would be interested to know. Also that the increment in the number of cabinet ministers from 24 to 28 leaves a lot to be desired against the austerity measures that the current government has been pursuing.
Political scholar Jean Kasunda agrees, noting that while the removal of the Ministry of State was a positive step, the overall growth of the cabinet is a step backward for the economy.
Changing or reshuffling the cabinet at this stage is a good response to a problem that he might have seen with his cabinet. However, considering our state of the economy, I don't think it is right and proper to increase the number of cabinet members. Our economy cannot support consumption. All we need now to restore confidence in the public.
The restructuring also involves significant shifts in key portfolios. Feston Kaupa moves from transport to the Minister of Defense, replacing Chimamwe Chipungu, who has now been deployed to the Lands, Housing and Urban Development Ministry. The Minister of State has been entirely abolished. Its former head, Alfred Gangata, now leads the newly independent Ministry of Natural Resources. Meanwhile, Jean Matanga, who previously oversaw the combined mega ministry, will now focus solely on energy and mining. Under sections 92 subsection 1 and 94 subsection 1 of the Constitution, the President maintains the full authority to appoint and restructure his cabinet as he sees it. The question remains whether this larger team will deliver the solutions Malawians are looking for. George Mhango, Channel Africa News, Blantyre.
Hearty laughter and joyous gatherings. Channel Africa celebrates the season with you on the African Perspective.
7 o'clock Central African time as we enter the second hour of Rise and Shine with me, Asanda Beda, and Peter Ndoro. We say good morning. Wake up with us, Africa. Here's Dwelane Tulo with our news. Let's start there.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. At least 22 migrants have been killed and 65 others injured after a lorry they were travelling in overturned in Ethiopia's northeastern Afar region. About 85 Ethiopian migrants were travelling along the eastern migration route when their lorry overturned in the town of Samira. Their final destination was unclear, but the route typically runs from Ethiopia through Djibouti across the Red Sea to Yemen and onward to Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries. Yemen is a major pathway for migrants from the Horn of Africa travelling to Gulf states in search of work. 14 South Africans in their early 20s who were recruited for employment in Thailand and are now being detained in that country are due to be deported back to South Africa. This was confirmed by Department of International Relations and Cooperation spokesperson Crispin Piri. The youngsters were allegedly recruited by a South African man for employment in the IT sector. However, some allegedly ended up performing scamming activities, while others were allegedly deployed to the military. According to a family member of one of the South Africans, they had been refused any form of communication with the outside world and were being detained in inhumane conditions. South Africa's Freedom Front Plus party says the African National Congress's policies are driven by what it calls anti-Western ideology, and this is evidenced by the ANC's condemnation of the removal of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. U.S. elite Delta Force troops captured Maduro last weekend under the cover of airstrikes. The FF Plus says the ANC cannot speak on behalf of all South Africans on Venezuela or foreign policy. FF Plus leader Corneille Mulder has welcomed recent U.S. action against Maduro, describing Maduro's government as illegitimate and responsible for widespread human rights abuses.
The ANC cannot speak on behalf of South Africa regarding the events in Venezuela. The Freedom Front Plus has repeatedly pointed out that the ANC's ideologically driven anti-Western policy does not reflect the sentiments of all South Africans and is not in the best interest of South Africa and our own positioning in international relations. The Freedom Front Plus welcomes the actions of the United States taken against Nicolas Maduro to make sure that he will stand trial for the indictment and the charge sheet against him for all the acts that he is being accused of.
Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar is on a visit to Somaliland in East Africa to hold meetings with the semi-autonomous region's president, Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi. The visit comes 10 days after Israel formally recognized the self-declared Republic of Somaliland as an independent and sovereign state, a move that sparked criticism from Somalia, which has long opposed Somaliland's bid to secede. The African Union has also condemned Israel's actions. And finally, the Venezuelan authorities have intensified their crackdown on political opponents since the United States seized President Nicolas Maduro at the weekend. Armed police are patrolling the streets of Caracas. The BBC's Mimi Swabi has the story.
Alongside an increased military and police presence, armed citizen militias at the order of the government are reportedly combing the streets, quashing any celebrations of the US operation. The Union of Journalists and Media Workers say at least 14 journalists were detained on Monday. They've all since been released, although one was deported. Images have been shared online of Venezuelans holding signs rejecting Delcy Rodriguez as the interim president. However, many are scared to take to the streets or publicly express US support, fearing heavy-handed repercussions.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Sports headline: the Algerian Foxes beat the DR Congo Leopards to set up a Nigeria quarterfinal clash. And Paul Adams urges the Proteas under-19 team to trust themselves in the upcoming World Cup. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine, every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
All right, and we enter our programming for the second hour of Rise and Shine, and this will be our last hour as we are still within our festive season programming on Channel Africa. We are channelafrica.co.za. That's where you can connect with us. You can connect with us on the SABC Plus app via mobile phones. Also, find us at Channel Africa 1. That's our social media handles. We live stream on YouTube via that, but also we are on the other platforms. My name is Asanda Beda. Good morning.
A very good morning, and I'm Peter Ndoro. Yes, thanks so much indeed for joining us for this shortened version of Rise and Shine this week, only 2 hours each day, but we will be back to our normal dose of 3 hours from Monday next week. And coming up this hour, I'm going to be looking at an interesting story. Activists in South Africa were protesting and standing up for Palestinian hunger strikers in the UK. Find out what that's all about in this half hour.
Also, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar is in Somaliland. This is 10 days after Israel formally recognized the self-declared republic as an independent and sovereign state. So we'll be talking about that, unpacking with the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation Associate Researcher at the University of Johannesburg.
The sound of Africa is evolving. Experience our new mobile app. Free to download, free to connect. As the sun rises on 2026, Channel Africa celebrates with you. This year, may prosperity flow like water. May unity strengthen our nations. And may every African story inspire the world.
Channel Afrique vous accompagne dans cette célébration. Que l'espoir illumine notre continent.
Que as vozes de África ecoem com orgulho.
Ustawi na ufanisi na vitiririke kama maji.
From all of us at Channel Africa, we wish you and yours a joyful, successful, and prosperous 2026.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Bringing you the energy, news, and good vibes to kickstart your day. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
The UN's High Commissioner for Human Rights says that the United States military action is in contravention of Venezuela's sovereignty and the United Nations Charter, and it damages the architecture of international security, making every country less safe. Volker Turk made those remarks in an opinion piece for The Guardian, and his views have since been echoed by his office. It said that Washington's actions in Venezuela that led to the capture of the country's now deposed leader, Nicolas Maduro, and First Lady Cilia Flores violated fundamental principles of international law. The officers further warned that the future of Venezuela may be determined by the people of that country. Sherwin Price-Peace reports from New York.
The High Commissioner argued in his op-ed that Washington's actions weakened the United Nations, which represent the only mechanism the world has to prevent conflict. His spokesperson, Ravina Shamdasani.
This operation violates a fundamental principle of international law. It violates the UN Charter. This Charter states that states must not threaten or use force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. And this is what we are seeing.
The United States has argued that its actions were steeped in law enforcement against a fugitive who they allege was directly responsible for narco-terrorism that killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. Further questioning Maduro's human rights record. Listen to U.S. envoy to the United Nations, Ambassador Mike Waltz.
Maduro is not just an indicted drug trafficker. He was an illegitimate so-called president. He was not a head of state. For years, Maduro and his cronies have manipulated Venezuela's electoral system to maintain their illegitimate grip on power. In fact, just 2 years ago in 2024, a UN panel of experts report found that the election in that year was absolutely and completely a farce and fell well short of the most basic transparency and integrity measures essential to upholding credible elections.
An argument the UN Human Rights Office sought to address, having documented and reported on human rights abuses in Venezuela, including questionable election outcomes, calling for an end to unfair trials, arbitrary detention, enforced disappearances and persecution of political opponents, among other remedies.
Using human rights arguments as a justification for this kind of military intervention is unacceptable. Let us not pretend that this is an action taken in defense of human rights of anyone. This is an action that was taken in contravention of international law, and that is clear. And the international community needs to come together with one voice to insist on that, to make that clear, that this is an action that was in contravention of the international law that was set up by member states.
A view echoed by South Africa's representative in the Security Council Monday, Jonathan Passmore.
South Africa stresses that allegations of internal governance challenges, human rights concerns, or acts of criminality by a head of state cannot justify a breach of the Charter's prohibition on the use of force, particularly Article 2.4 of the Charter. The peaceful resolution of disputes and internal matters must proceed in accordance with international law and through multilateral mechanisms.
While public policy analyst Professor Jeffrey Sachs of Columbia University sought to spell out the role of the Security Council.
In the past month, President Trump has issued direct threats against 6 UN member states, including Colombia, Denmark, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, and of course, Venezuela. Members of the Council are not called upon to judge Nicolas Maduro. They are not called upon to assess whether the recent U.S. attack and ongoing naval quarantine results in freedom or in subjugation. Members of the Council are called upon to defend international law, and specifically the UN Charter.
And on the questions about who or what will run Venezuela moving forward, given statements by President Trump that it would be the United States, particularly as it relates to that country's oil wealth, the UN Shamdasani had this to say.
UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk calls on the US and the Venezuelan Authority, as well as the international community, to ensure full respect for international law, including human rights. The future of Venezuela must be determined by the Venezuelan people alone, with full respect for their human rights, including the right to self-determination and sovereignty over their lives and their resources.
Volker Turk also pointed to what history teaches us in these moments, that while attempts at regime change may initially be greeted by relief, they often lead to massive human rights violations, dangerous chaos, and protracted violent conflict. A position asserted by Pretoria's envoy in the Council Monday. That history has repeatedly demonstrated that military invasions against sovereign states healed only instability and deepened crises, while undermining the principle of equality among nations. I'm Sherwin Bryce-Pease in New York.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
And it is 14 minutes past 7 Central African. If you've just joined us, good morning to you. Let's go to Israel now, or rather Somaliland. But the Israeli Foreign Minister, Gideon Sara, is in Somaliland 10 days after Israel formally recognized the self-declared republic as an independent and sovereign state. Somalia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has strongly condemned the visit, describing it as a violation of Somalia's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The ministry says Israel's official engagement with Somaliland, conducted without Somalia's consent, is illegal and null and void, and has called on international bodies, including the United Nations and the African Union, to uphold and support Somalia's territorial integrity. For more on this, we're joined on the line by Dr. Saif Tadel Kidane, a director of the Center for Governance and Intra-Africa Trade Studies at the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation, or IPATC, associate researcher at the University of Johannesburg. Dr. Kidane, thank you for joining us, and Happy New Year to you.
Amen. The same here, Sanda.
Thanks. Why has Israel chosen this particular moment to formalize diplomatic relations with Somaliland, and what strategic or diplomatic objectives does it hope to achieve?
It's a number of layers. I mean, as you know, that the Somaliland is positioned itself in a very strategic point of the Eden gateway for trade between Africa and Europe and the rest of the world. So that's very strategic for Israel. That's very strategic for Somaliland. As you know, Somaliland has been independently running this show for the last 30 years quietly. And the African Union, IGAD, and other regional actors were not playing, adequately in this regard. So Israel is playing in this vacuum, the vacuum which African countries, particularly in the Horn of Africa and in the East Africa, which they have never, involved in this matter for quite a long time. So this is very critical. As you know, Israel also in a very stumbling block with the Gaza situation. So this is a way out just to show their international concern. So it's a multi-layer kind of political gain for Israel. But for me, we shouldn't blame Israel rather than our own regional organization like African Union, IGAD, and others, who have never been played, a vital role in this regard for a number of years. Somaliland has been there as a de facto state since 89, and so we have never had a committee which is oversighting the situation, and even Somalia has never been entitled or in a position to voice itself against Somaliland. So there are a number of issues. I mean, political landscapes are playing in this regard. As we speak, we are hearing, beside Israel, the UAE, India, Morocco, Kenya, and Ethiopia is joining the recognition. We are not quite sure. I mean, we are not certain, but there is a rumor on that side. This is what I can say from my side. Yeah.
And what about Ethiopia? Could Israel's recognition of Somaliland also embolden this power to reconsider their stance on Somaliland's sovereignty?
Definitely. If you remember a year back, Somaliland and Ethiopia, they signed MOU to use the Berbera port. We opposed during that time because this is against the African Union Constitutive Act, and this is against all kind of treaties in the African Union. However, this was a more of preparation for this day, and in my opinion, I mean, Israel is jumping because they were they are still supporting the Kenyan position and the Ethiopian position. As you know, there is a conflict between Somalia and Ethiopia. There is a claim of territory, and there is a claim of territory between Kenya and Somalia. So there are multiple actors are playing in this game. Kenya and Ethiopia are the one. They might be in one camp. Also, the Arab League, like Egypt and Saudi, are also they are playing in different cards. And in this regard, Israel is playing, in favor of Ethiopia and Kenya. So that's why we're hearing now Morocco, UAE, and India in jumping in this scenario. This is what I can say from my side. Yeah.
All right, let's talk the African Union now. Is there potential for the AU to explore conditional or partial recognition of Somaliland while still respecting Somalia's territorial claims, do you think?
Yes, look, you read about the chairperson statement before, like, I don't know, a week ago. He raised this issue unilaterally without consulting, the African Union Peace and Security and PSE. And different kind of strata. And there had been, as I said earlier, they had been sleeping on this matter for a number of years. They had never done anything good just to make, to keep the territorial integrity of Somalia. But immediately when they get announcement from outside, they jump into this theatrical position, which is, in my opinion, it's very unprofessional, which is unfounded. They could have worked, for the last 30 years in this regard, just to keep, the territorial integrity of Somalia. However, now the African Union is calling, emergency meeting on the Israeli recognition. That is the recent communique, I think, before like 24 hours. So now we would like to hear, what's going on in this regard.
Right.
And the only voice we heard is only South Africa, which is standing, against the decision of Israel, which is legitimate, and which is it has its own historical connection. Also, if you remember that the Gaza, the ICJ and other, political take by South Africa. Otherwise, only Egypt was opposing the decision by the Israel, but it's a very diplomatic, with a diplomatic tone. So we had never heard any other African countries, voicing on this regard, and it's very unfortunate for all of us. Yeah.
Dr. Kidane, thank you so much for your valuable insights. We appreciate them. We'll leave it there for today. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. That's Dr. Saifi Tadal Kidane, a director at the Center for Governance and Intra-Africa Trade Studies and the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation, associate researcher at the University of Johannesburg.
Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. channelafrica.co.za.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Start your day informed, inspired, and entertained. Asanda and Peter bring you Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time.
Several civil society organizations based in South Africa yesterday staged nationwide protests in support of pro-Palestine hunger strikers currently held in the United Kingdom prisons. Now, the groups have urged the South African government to pressure the British authorities to release the 33 activists from the Palestine Action Group who remain in pre-trial detention, having not yet appeared in court. The activists have been held for more than a year on allegations of breaking into Elbit Systems, a UK subsidiary of the Israeli Defence Company in Bristol, as well as a Royal Air Force base in Oxfordshire. For more on this, we're now joined on the line by Sunny Morgan from the Palestinian Solidarity Alliance. Sunny, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Tell us a little bit more about who these hunger strikers are and why they've chosen to take such a extreme step whilst in the UK custody.
So they're ordinary young people, ordinary citizens from civil society that didn't want to be complicit in a genocide. They looked to their governments and their elected representatives to do what is right. However, the British government, the Labour government, has just shown itself to be not too extreme to say that they're in the pockets of the Israeli lobby. These young people wanted to voice their disapproval with the way their government was siding with the Israelis. They took this action. You know, to do a hunger strike is perhaps the most dangerous action one could take, but the most noble action one could take, specifically when you have in mind that you could, your demands will not be met, and you could actually die. You know, it's significant that we're having this interview today because it's day 66 of one of the hunger strikers, and Bobby Sands, in 1981, who also participated in a hunger strike, died on day 66 of his hunger strike, together with 9 other activists in 1981. And this kind of example is that a hunger strike is perhaps the most moral, the highest form of resistance one could take to show one's disapproval at every cause, and we are at this stage now. So these young people, remember, Peter, that when they took this action, they were in support of Palestine Action. That organization at that time was not prescribed. In South Africa, we would say banned, right? Was not a banned organization. And these youngsters were just doing what civil society activists are doing around the world, taking a form of action to show their governments that we're fed up with the lack of action from governments, and it's left up to ordinary individuals, ordinary workers, students, academics, people from all walks of life to do this action to stop the complicity and to stop a genocide.
So civil society groups such as yours mobilized yesterday in particular. What message are you trying to send, not just to the British authorities, but also to South Africa's government?
So 3 actions around the country, one at the British Council, one in Durban, and one at the UK High Commission offices or consulate in Cape Town, or the embassy. So the message is obviously first and foremost to the British authorities for a couple of simple demands, is for the immediate release of these activists so they can get medical attention, like immediately, like today. They also want to be out on bail. They want proper representation. Whilst they're inside, they want the normal things that a prisoner would expect from their jailers, is to be treated with respect, is to be able to get visitors, to get legal representation, not to be tortured, not to be intimidated, all of those issues. But one of the key demands, of course, also is the shutdown of the weapons factory, Albert Systems, that's in the UK. The central issue here for us is to target our demands at the British government, but also at the South African government, is to be able to say that South Africa can put moral, diplomatic pressure, legal pressure on the British authorities to act. We in our own resistance, in our own situation in South Africa during our struggle with apartheid, this was a normal issue. We write to British authorities, we write to politicians, we ask politicians to put pressure on the government, and this is a legitimate avenue of resistance, and it's a legitimate avenue also of the diplomatic channels. So we are hoping that our government is listening. We have sent the memorandum to the British authorities. We have also sent the memorandum through our diplomatic channels to South African authorities. We hope that they would be able to do what states do, talk to each other and put this situation high up on the agenda. This is not something that needs to be considered at opening of Parliament. It's not something that needs to be considered in a casual way in a few weeks' time when somebody has the time to send an email or make a phone call. This is the most urgent thing. Lives are at stake here and people could be dying. Like even
Sonny,
as we speak,
thank you so much indeed for raising this issue and explaining it so well. And we wish you the best in getting these people, these activists freed. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Peter.
That was Sonny Morgan, civil society activist and spokesperson for the Palestinian Solidarity Alliance, talking to us about the Palestinian activists, pro-Palestinian activists currently on hunger strike in the United Kingdom. It's 7:30. It's time for your news headlines. Good morning once again to you, Chwalani Tulongwepe.
SABC News headlines. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Making headlines, at least 13 people have been killed, 8 of them children, after a drone strike on a house in the Sudanese city of Al Obeid. The African National Congress Party Secretary General in South Africa, Fikile Mbalula, has condemned the Freedom Front Plus leader Corneille Mulder's remarks praising the US's attack on Venezuela. And finally, the White House has confirmed that President Donald Trump and his team have been discussing a range of options to acquire Greenland. It has specified that the use of military force is one such possibility. I will have details on these and other stories at 8 o'clock.
SABC News headlines. The African perspective.
For all the action happening in the world of sports, we find out the latest from Fikile Lingwati. Good morning.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good morning, Asanda. We kick off with football news. Adil Bolbina's stunning late strike spared Algeria the agony of penalties and booked their place in the quarterfinals of the Africa Cup of Nations as the Phoenix edged past DR Congo 1-0 after extra time in Rabat. With the last 16 contest at the Moulay Hassan Stadium locked in a tense stalemate deep into extra time, Vladimir Petkovic turned to his bench and was rewarded almost instantly. Just minutes after his introduction, Bolbina cut inside from the right and unleashed a curling effort that clipped the crossbar before beating Lionel Mbazinzao, finally breaking Congolese resistance in the dying moments. The dramatic victory sends Algeria into the AFCON quarterfinals for the first time since their 2019 triumph, where they will face Nigeria in Marrakesh on the 10th of January. Amad Diallo proved to be the star of the show as defending champions Ivory Coast booked their spot in the Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinals after a 3-0 victory against Burkina Faso in Marrakesh. Manchester United winger Amad opening the scoring in the first half before providing an assist for Yan Diomande to double the Elephants' lead. Bazumana Taure then sealed the contest late on as Ivory Coast continued to mount a strong challenge to hold on to the title they won at home. The Elephants will now gear up for a last clash against Algeria, where the earlier won 1-0 against DR Congo. In South Africa's under-19 cricket team, bowling coach Paul Adams says the boys should trust in their abilities ahead of the ICC World Cup starting next week in Namibia and Zimbabwe. Adams is part of the head coach Malibonge Maketa's technical team for the tournament and says the young men should use it as part of a learning process for their senior careers.
It's about a 2-year cycle that happens. So we've seen a lot of these players already when they've been 16 years old and sort of taken a journey with them through various tours, through various camps to prepare him for this very moment, this tournament. So yeah, a lot has gone into it, and it's a special tournament for everyone.
Let's end with golf news. The PGA Tour winner Thomas Detry is set to join Live Golf for the 2026 season. Detry, who became the first Belgian to win a PGA Tour event with his 7-strokes triumph at the Phoenix Open last year, is expected to line up alongside compatriot Thomas Peters on Dustin Johnson's 4 Aces team. Australia's Elvis Smiley is also reported to be joining Liv, slotting into Cameron's Smith Ripper GC after his breakthrough win at the 2024 BMW Australian PGA Championship. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Channel Africa's got the continent's biggest football moment covered with the 2025-2026 AFCON tournament.
So, today in history, 1822, the arrival of the first American settlers in Liberia. Now, the first group of freed African-American settlers sponsored by the American Colonization Society arrived at Providence Island near present-day Monrovia. Now, this event marked the beginning of the modern state of Liberia, the first modern republic in Africa. This is January the 7th, 1822.
And then our U.S. President Donald Trump, the infamous Orange Man, didn't understand why the Liberian president could speak English.
Exactly.
He didn't read that day in history.
Unwinding with Africa's holiday rhythms. Rejoice with Channel Africa, the African perspective.
The whole population of Africa has been shocked to the depth of its soul.
For 60 years, Channel Africa has been the voice that connects the continent, telling our stories and sharing our vision with the world. This year, we mark 6 decades of broadcast excellence.
60 years of stories, sound, and connection.
6 years of African conversations that matter.
This is 60 years of broadcast excellence.
Rooted in Africa's heartbeat and looking boldly into the future. Join Channel Africa as we celebrate 60 years of broadcasting. Still strong, still vibrant, and still giving you the African perspective.
Channel Africa.
The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Muranziwa wa mina. Muranziwa means my love in Xitsonga. So if you're listening to this, just know that you are my love. Yes. You and I are an item. We are dating. We are together. So I love you, baby. Why are you blushing? Why are you blushing? Like, haven't you heard somebody confessing their love to you? I mean, you gotta get used to it now, because I'm gonna tell you this every day, that I love you. I can tell you, there are so many people who are never told they are loved. I come to the studio every Monday, 12 to 3, because I've got an appointment with you. I take you serious. Forget about the other person, right? Moranziwa.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Peda on Channel Africa.
Sexual violence against children is endemic, systemic, and worsening across the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, according to a recent report by the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF. While conflict remains a major driver, the report shows cases documented in communities across every province and rising sharply since 2022. In the report, nationwide data compiled by protection and gender-based violence service providers indicate that more than 35,000 cases of sexual violence against children were recorded nationwide in the first 9 months of 2025, pointing to a crisis that continues to escalate. To talk to us further on this, we joined on the line by the Deputy Representative for UNICEF in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Mariam Silia. Mariam, thank you for joining us, and a great start to the new year for you, 2026, but not so much with this particular story, but just generally, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. A happy new year to you and your listeners.
Thank you. You speak of the rise of sexual violence against children in the DRC. What is the reason behind the surge that we're seeing of sexual violent cases? And do you know what ages we're talking about here?
Yes, sexual violence against children, it's children between 11 and 15, 12, and 17, actually adolescent girls. So sexual violence against children in the DRC is one of the most severe crises globally. As you mentioned, in 2024, close to 45,000 cases were reported, 3 times higher than in 2022. And the real numbers are likely much higher. As you know, the true scale is likely greater. Stigma, fear of retaliation, and insecurity and limited access to services prevent many survivors from coming forward. As we mentioned again, while conflict is a major driver, sexual violence is a nationwide problem. It's fueled by poverty, harmful gender norms, weak protection system, and lack of accountability. Of course, the highest concentration are in conflict-affected provinces, the Kivus, North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri, where insecurity, displacements expose children to violence, even during daily tasks like fetching water or food. But the crisis is not confined to conflict zone. In Kasai and urban centers like Kinshasa, poverty, early marriage, school dropout, and overcrowding also increases risk. Together, those patterns show that while conflicts remain a major driver, sexual violence against children in the DRC is deep-rooted nationwide. Ending sexual violence requires urgent collective action, stronger justice and accountability, survivor-centered services, and community engagement to challenge those harmful norms and social norms.
And as you speak of those centers as being part of the solution, what is the role of protection and gender-based violence service providers in the DRC, and are they empowered to help?
Government has, in the last few years, has taken a strong stance against violence against children. Safe space like Toyokana, which is a Lingala word meaning let's listen to one another, was put in place with the involvement and engagement of adolescent girls. Those are safe space where girls can access to a range of support services, including basic medical checkup and referrals, psychosocial counseling, opportunity to learn income-generating skills. Also, government has put in place a reparation fund for victim sexual violence. That was launched in 2023. It's called in French FONAREV, the National Fund for Reparation for Victim and Sexual Violence. It's a signal that the state is committed to supporting survivors and represent a critical step towards delivering justice and accountability. Now, social workers are also being scaled up so that they provide the required services to children and women. And in addition to that, prevention and community engagement is critical. That's where women groups, youth group, women and girls are supported by local organization, local authority, community organization, traditional and religious leaders, and youth group to challenge these harmful norms and lower the risk factors. So there is a lot to do, as you mentioned, but again, there are commitment at different levels to bring about the changes and to make to really address the root causes of these sexual violence against children.
When it comes to stigma on victims, do you see this play out more in the displacement camps or in the villages within communities? Or have you not differentiated between these two different environments? As you say, the abuse itself happens across the board.
Stigma happens everywhere. Camps, villages, even cities. Survivors are often blamed, rejected, silenced, while perpetrators go unpunished. Families fear gossip, retaliation, pressuring girls to stay quiet or accept informal settlement. As one of the 17-year-old in Kinshasa told us, when people see me, they whisper, they think I'm dirty. Many girls drop out of school due to stigma or safety concern, limiting their future and increasing their vulnerability. A 16-year-old girl in Kasai said to us, I wanted to be a nurse, but now I stay home. My parents say people will talk if I go back to class. So breaking these stigmas means changing harmful norms, engaging communities, women, parents, and the girls themselves, and engaging survivors to have safe space, psychological support, and access to justice. So it's this community engagement, making sure girls have space to talk, and going back to school safely will be key in ending the stigma.
With aid being cut, what can the international community do, or has the situation worsened to a point where it cannot be contained from the international community's intervention?
As if you know, the current situation in terms of aid being cut is quite it's serious. Effort to prevent, mitigate, and respond to social violence against children are critically underfunded, reflecting wider global funding, as you mentioned. But these shortfalls have forced many safe spaces, mobile clinics, and community-based protection services to scale back or close, including some of the highest risk and hardest area to reach. UNICEF, we stress the urgent need for predictable, flexible, and sustained financing from government or partners to maintain essential services, to expand prevention effort, and to strengthen accountability and justice. Without this renewed investment, all the hard-won progress we have made risk being reversed. So predictable funding, instead of having a few funding now and then, is critical to address this crisis in the DRC.
As things stand then, what is safety like in these displacement camps in conflict areas?
Come again, please.
As things stand, what is safety like in these displacement camps?
The safety is extremely fragile, you know. Children, especially those separated or who are not accompanied, sleep in open space, open tent, or share spaces with strangers, facing violence and exploitation. The overcrowded shelters, lack of privacy expose girls and boys to violence and exploitation. So improving safety means secure shelters, children-friendly spaces, even in those displacement camps, and stronger community protection system would help to reduce those the danger these children faces.
Miriam, we're going to leave it there, but thanks for making time for us. Not a great chat, nothing to celebrate there, but a conversation that needs to be had nonetheless. So thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the opportunity. We count on you to help us fight this crisis. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And the UNICEF also playing their role in fighting this crisis is something we appreciate. Deputy Representative for UNICEF in the Democratic Republic of Congo there, Miriam Silla, speaking to us on the line, painting a picture in terms of a worsening sexual violence against children endemic across the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they've done a report as the United Nations Children's Fund, and of course conflict remaining one of the major drivers, but the report also showing that in communities now, the villages across every province in the DRC, not just in the displacement camps, this abuse is being carried out, and the numbers are rising since the start of 2022. If we look back then in the first 9 months of 2025, 35,000 cases more than of sexual violence against children were recorded nationwide. Not a great picture, not absolutely as we start the new year of 2026.
Cling, cling. Turn up the African vibe, Africa style. Tune in on the Channel Africa app or log on to our website, channelafrica.co.za. Across Africa, communities rise with the promise of clean water and clean sanitation. The African Union's 2026 theme calls us to action.
It's about mobilizing real commitments, securing climate-resilient water and sanitation projects, and ensuring that water becomes a driver of sustainable development and prosperity across the continent.
A landmark moment, not only for Africa, but for the global movement for access to safe water for all.
Assuring sustainable water availability for every home, every village, every nation. This is the Africa we want.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Peda on Channel Africa.
Right, coming up in about 10 minutes' time, it's On the Move with Benjamin and Palesa. And Benjamin, in all green today,
yes,
is in studio. Good morning.
How are you doing?
Yeah, we're good, man. Enjoying the new year.
Good.
Yeah,
still not shocked by Venezuela and the US.
Madness, completely.
And you're wearing military colors today.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's,
militant.
Nah, I'm not quite sure about that.
So, what's coming up on the move?
All right, man. We're going to be looking at something very interesting today. It's back to school season. And
yes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm out of that one.
I saw your smile, though.
Yeah,
I saw your smile. I was like, yeah.
My last one finished at GED last year. I was like, thank you, Jesus.
All right. To unpack what's really happening sometimes beneath the meltdowns that takes place during this time, why back to school transitions can be hard, and how to support children through big emotions with confidence and care. Especially those ones who are starting like a new season, maybe first year in high school, first time in a proper big school like primary school. It's a huge transition, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's a big thing. My dad would always take you on the first day, show you how to get to school.
Okay.
And then after that,
You're
good
on
luck,
your
you're on your own.
But now with you having a girl, I'm sure you'll be a bit...
Yeah.
Both of you actually.
I have a boy.
Oh, you have a boy?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you with a girl,
It's
I'm
a
sure you'll be
different
more
dynamic. I mean, I think
soft.
I think the world that they live in is much different to the world we live in.
Yeah.
Ours was much safer, and so kids could move around on their own. Now we've got kidnappings and all sorts of dynamics now that play out, and also there's just there's digital screens, so much
Absolutely.
information. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a different world. So different way to raise kids.
Especially when they move into that teenage
Yeah,
area. Now
yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
navigate all those issues
Yeah.
that you highlight. Safety,
Yeah.
peer pressure.
Yes.
There's also the dynamic of
Social
just social
media.
media. How do they navigate that? Because some of these things are just there in your face,
Yeah.
and the internet is a real reality.
Yeah, and we just assume that just because it's actually a girl, let me correct myself there, that they should be softer than the boys. But even the boys need to have that ushering
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and
absolutely.
guidance as much.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to leave it there.
Cool.
Thank you so much. We
Thank
look
you,
forward to On the Move after the 8 o'clock news.
A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, let's focus on this story now. A South Africa-based non-governmental organization, Gatekeepers, has written to President Cyril Ramaphosa proposing that the legal drinking age be raised from 18 to between 21 and 23. Now, the organization is calling for stricter regulation of alcohol sales and consumption to curb widespread alcohol abuse, which it says contributes to problems such as domestic violence and drunk driving. Lizelle Morris is the founding director of Gatekeepers South Africa and argues that the legislation has previously been effective in limiting cigarette advertising and could be used similarly to address alcohol-related harm. She joins us now on the line. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Peter, and good morning to you and to the listeners as well. Thank you for the opportunity.
So, what do you think? Why do you think raising the drinking age to 21, between 21 and 23, will make a difference?
We think that it will definitely be a deterrent. I was listening to the discussions with your colleagues earlier on about how the world has changed and how the world is very different. And peer group pressure is also a contributing factor. So if young people know that the legal age of drinking is 21 or 23, because we did say in our letter between 21 and 23, it will be a deterrent. You know, people will think, young people will think twice, you know, and although I know even now with the legal limit of 18 years old, it's, you know, young people, if they want to drink, they do indulge, but at least it's the first step in corrective action in trying to reduce the high rate of alcoholism, particularly amongst our youth population.
Do we have any idea just how big the problem is between this age group, 18 to 21, or is this preventing future behavior that you're looking at?
It has become a problem. We have a safety and security, excuse me, we have a safety and security cluster meeting every month with our local law enforcement and SAPs. And they too are very concerned because they've seen there's the pens down parties, there's the rage parties, and I don't know if it's in the other cities as well, where this phenomena, where a group of young people, they call it something, they give it some name, where they encourage each other to meet at a certain point. And when you, I've seen it myself, hundreds and hundreds of young people, either at the beach or they encourage each other to meet at a certain spot. And you can see some of those young people are very young, you know, so even the outlets need to be more responsible as well with people entering. They come there with their cooler boxes. They can even stand in the middle of the road. And you know what? Taxi drivers are involved because taxis are the ones who transport these young people to these various sites with their cooler boxes, with their alcohol. So I think that it will prevent those kinds of behaviors.
So what do you say to people who say, but hang on, at 18, I can vote. I'm considered old enough to make sensible decisions. I can marry. I can sign contracts without consent. So why are we able to say that people can make rational adult decisions at that age, but you don't think that they can make decisions about alcohol at the same age?
It's a culture shift, and it really boils down to getting things right, and it's the first step towards corrective action. The research has shown that the brain of a adult human being, in fact, not only research, scientific evidence has shown that the brain of a human being is only fully developed by age 25. And we can see the immaturity, the uncertainty, the unsettledness of 18-year-olds, some of them in matric. They don't know what they're going to do. They don't know what they're going to become. They're not sure about their futures. They're not sure what to study at university. If you ask a young person now, what are you going to do when you hear they're in matric? They say, I'm not sure, So at least by between 21 and 23, they are a little bit more settled, many of them in tertiary institutions by that time. They know where they're going. So raising the legal limit will really is the first step in trying to extend that, not to allow them or not to let them get addicted at a young age. Wait until they're a little bit more mature, a little bit more settled, and between 3 and 5 years after the age of 18 will definitely go a long way in ensuring that.
All right, and very briefly, in 30 seconds, how has this worked in countries like the US? Because I know that they have a similar age restriction. Enforcement must be really difficult.
So that's where the culture aspect of it comes in. It really takes all of us, parents, all of us. And recently my son went to the US, and they at the restaurant that he entered, they asked him, are you over 21? So it starts from the restaurant, it starts from the liquor outlets, it boils down to the enforcement. And even there, the security cluster really needs to clamp down and make alcohol less accessible to our young people. Even the advertising that is enticing our young people.
Sadly, we've run out of time, and I have to say goodbye. Thank you so much indeed for joining us on the program, and we wish you the best with your initiative.
Thank you so much. Thanks to the listeners as well. Thank you.
All right, it's time for us to hand over to the Rise on the Move team.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week.